做一个简单的介绍，好不好？好。这位就是Maria Salvini教授，他是国际是意大利的，然后他住在美国曼谷，在那个Mahidol University 的这个 Buddhist Study PhD program， 就是他们的这个博士班的一个 director， 就是他们的应该是所长，类似所长的一个地位。然后他的这个研究领域就是那个主要是以印度的中观学为主的，然后他有相关的一些在中国philosophy的一些论文出版的。然后我们前2年呢，在华梵也是一起合办一个学术研讨，或者是那个有关中观学的一个学术研讨，或者邀请一些国际一流学者来到这边发表演讲。好，那个今天就是要开始那个微末节经的那个古尔法门的部分，然后还有那个后半的课程是我们是决定那个学程的那个萨那帕达的一些部分啊。那个萨那帕达大家都知道，这是那个中论的一个注释，学程的注释。那我们要读的是那个第1题，就是关于这个部分。好，那请他现在开始。
Thank you for coming to these readings, which we are called Kirti readings, because we are reading the Kirti Sutra and the Prasannapada, which was composed by Chandra Kirti. So Kirti happens to be the common word somehow in this text, but very usual word in Buddhist titles and in names. In these readings, I'm going to go, I think, fairly slow. And if there is something you don't understand, please feel free to ask me. For the Kirti Nirdesha Sutra, if some of you have the Chinese text, that would also be good. It would be useful to compare occasionally, because this text has some difficulties of its own. Because it's a sutra, and while the Shastra that we are reading has its own difficulties in terms of the concepts, because of its philosophy, the sutras have other types of difficulties. Namely, their language is a little bit unique. So sometimes it's good to double check how it has been translated. I usually would do that with Tibetan, but since we're here, it may be worthwhile to check every now and then the Chinese when there is a difficult word. Now, something more practical. Can you all hear me?
Can you hear him?
No.
You have to speak up.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So should I repeat everything I said? Okay, so welcome to the Kirti readings, which are so called because we are reading the Vimala Kirti Nirdesha Sutra. It's okay, I have anyhow to move it. And the Prasannapada by Chandra Kirti. So we are reading these two texts. One is a sutra, one is a shastra. Sutra means a discourse attributed to the Buddha, and Shastra means a philosophical treatise. These two texts have different difficulties. The Prasannapada is more difficult for its philosophical content and for its technicality. The Vimalakirti Nirdesha Sutra has other difficulties, namely, it's a sutra, it has its own special language, and sometimes, if possible, I would be happy if you could double check the Chinese translation. And if some of you, at least one of you, could keep an eye on Edgerton's dictionary for difficult terms, maybe when I'm going to do that. So, I will try to go slow, but please feel free to interrupt me, to ask further explanation, to ask me when you don't understand something. I normally use more or less traditional categories to describe Sanskrit grammar. So, for example, I am more used to explain nominal declension in terms of vibhaktis, numbered from 1 to 7. However, Professor Cantor has pointed out that most of you are not familiar with that, so I will also indicate what that corresponds in case terminology, which I don't like much. I have my reasons which I will highlight in the course of these readings, but which I will refer to just to make your life easier. So, today's readings are starting, like in all our meetings, with the Vimala Kirti Nirdesha Sutra, and we are reading a very specific chapter. Incidentally, Venerable Vilokananda is here from Mahidol, and he has kindly made himself available if you wish to revise a little bit, if you want to have one more go at especially the grammar, perhaps you want to be discussing, perhaps you can discuss with him and make time for some meetings, and he will help you to go through the text once again. And since he is trying to learn classical Chinese, maybe you could together spend a little bit more time in comparing the text of the sutra in the two languages.
Did everybody understand? 你可以听懂吗？目前可以都可以听懂吗？不是，我问你，是不是你需要翻译吗？还是不需要？要。不用了。这个不用了，好。
后面有人要。
刚刚就是这是介绍一下我们这次要语度的部分啊，那当然是问我接近的那个如果阿尔法曼的部分，然后他就提到我们是可能是当我们是阅读范文的那个版本，可能同时也是去看一下，比如说九摩洛斯的翻译本，然后我想大家都有西贝塔的这个版本可以自己去抓到。然后就是做一个对比的，然后呢，他还提到这两位也是从马海道大学过来的，他的一个 PhD 就是博士生，然后跟他修博士，所以就是说上完课之后，如果你们还有一些范文方面的一些问题的话，他们会愿意帮忙做一个解释。反过来说，他们也是正在学一些中文的古文啊，所以你们可以互相学习，大概是这个意思。
Okay, some general remarks. I hope you will enjoy learning Sanskrit. The purpose of reading Sanskrit text is to read them, not to decipher them. So your aim should be to read the text, don't treat it as a puzzle. That's not a good approach to learning Sanskrit. You have to think of Sanskrit just as any other language. It's something that you learn to read. So in the end, your aim in your Sanskrit instruction should be to read texts and enjoy them. That's the idea. Okay.
大家听懂吗？不是，他说这是提醒你们， 就是梵文这个语言也没有那么难的，就是你们在阅的时候，你们要用 enjoy 的一个态度去阅读它了，不要就是很过度分析它的这个架构了。如果不懂的一些小部分没有关系的，主要是你要用阅读的方式，用念诵的，因为它原来是有念诵用的，所以就是这是也是一种阅读的一种快乐。它就是就提到这一点了，这个阅读的快乐不要忘记了，不要就是制作这种分析的。
Okay, so there's some small font problems, so sometimes the text appears a little bit funny, but still it's readable.
是不是关灯了？这样好一点了吗？可以吗？好。
So this is the topic of our first half of the afternoon, which is Vimalakirti Nirdesha Sutra, chapter 8. So let me just explain the title. This is an abbreviated title. It would be Arya Vimalakirti Nirdesha Sutra probably. And Arya would refer to Sutra. So when you find the word Arya, meaning noble, in Sutra titles, that actually qualifies Sutra, not anything that is in between. So this is something you should keep in mind regarding Sutra titles, that the term Arya goes with Sutra. Now, the sutra itself has a name, so that's how all the sutra titles work. Sometimes they do introduce the word nama, which means name, in between. Sometimes the word nama is not there. In this case, it is not there. So here the name that we have is Vimalakirti Nirdesha. So that's the name of the sutra. Nirdesha means a teaching. In a more technical sense, there's the pair of Uddesha and Nirdesha. But this is not meant here. This is just generally in the sense of indicating something, showing something, teaching something. The teaching of whom? Of Vimalakirti. Who is Vimalakirti? Is a Lichavi. So it belongs to a clan, possibly from northern India or Nepal, and is a householder, is a grihastha, is not a monk. So these are two of his main characteristics.
大家听懂吗？他是刚刚对这个维摩起定的这个梵文的对注题名称，这个经的注题名称的一个说明啊。然后很多这些佛教的经典，他们会有一个阿量就是英文我们说 noble， 然后就是怎么说？大概是中文的圣，神圣的圣。所以这个阿量的意思是说，它是形容这个经，而不形容这个经和圣中间的那些其他的名称，它是主要是这个意思，而且它是专门形容这个经的一个说法。然后他就说，这个Vimalakirti Nirdesha Sutra， Nirdesha 就是英文我们讲这个 teaching 教，teaching 就是 to indicate 显示、呈现、教。然后有你刚说you just said there is what
Uddesha.
Nirdesha. There's a specific difference you wanted to make.
I wanted to make there would be a difference in another context, but here it's not there.
OK。反正就是有Uddesha跟Nirdesha都是教的意思。那这个差别我们暂时不讲。 这样子。然后原本 Kirti 是一个人命啊，大家知道金命或者鬼魔其，那他是说他是那些就是我想大家都知道这个事情。
Before we actually go into the 8th chapter, I would like to first of all go through the titles of all the 12 chapters, so that we start getting an idea of the whole sutra, and some of you might already be familiar with the sutra in translation, so maybe an overview of the titles might be useful, just to give some context.
他先要去说明一下那些，我们讲这个第8品之前，他先想稍微介绍一下其他的品例方面的部分。
Titles in Mahayana Sutras are usually called parivarta. So you will find that this is almost everywhere in the Mahayana Sutras. We have this word, parivarta. You see?
Title.
That refers to the chapter. This means something like chapter. So the first one is called Buddha Kshetra Parishuddhi Nidana Parivarta. Now one thing I will ask you to do is to repeat. I would like you to get into the habit when you read Sanskrit, not, possibly never, to read silently. So when you read Sanskrit, you must get into the habit of reading aloud. It's very important. For Sanskrit, hearing is the most important point.
俊介总监，请把这句话翻译成中文，好不好？你
刚刚老师说，就是范文的学习，念诵要大声念出来，然后还有就是听很重要，就是听老师那个发音很重要。
So you will see that the text appears in two ways. What we have here is the text splitting the sandhi. In Sanskrit we have sandhi, euphonic combination, which means that when two sounds come together, they might be modified. So the splitting of the sandhi is done by putting a hyphen when we are discussing two words which are part of the same compound, and putting a comma when dividing two words which are not part of the same compound. That's just a convention which is widely used and which I'm using here.
听懂吗？
大概讲
不是，那这样这个第一个字跟下面是一样的，那差别在哪里？是因为下面他把这个音变的部分怎么说呈现出来了啊，就是说下面就没有这个音变，是这个意思了。所以在一个辅助语里面的会出现那些范文的那个音变的部分啊，然后他用这个 hyphen 就是一个横，就是代表是这原来是这两个字之间的连接语，对，是这个意思。对，然后如果有一个逗号，两个字之间有逗号，那的意思是说，在一个这两个字不是连接在一起的，这是。
So what we will do now is that first we will read each word here according to the splitting of the sandhi, and then we will read this. Oh, sorry, this. So now please repeat after me. Buddha, Kshetra, Parishuddhi, Nidana, Parivarta. Buddha, Kshetra, Parishuddhi, Nidana, Parivarta. Okay, good. So what does this mean? Nidana is a very important word. Nidana is found at the beginning of practically all Buddhist sutras. It's kind of the occasion, the context. It indicates the context of the sutra. Normally, Nidanas include the word Eva Maya Shrutam, which means thus I have heard. Then they include Ekasmin Samaye, which means at one time. Then they discuss the place of the teaching, which can vary. And they discuss the assembly, the parishat, which is the group of people who were present at the time of the teaching. So these elements are recurrent in the Nidana. This particular Nidana has something special, has a special theme, which is in addition to what I just mentioned. The special theme is Buddha Kshetra Parishuddhi. The purification or the purity, in this case, considering the actual content, of the Buddha field. Buddha Kshetra Parishuddhi is a theme in Mahayana literature. In fact, the purification of the Buddha field is what bodhisattvas have to perform at a certain time in their career, like when they reach a certain boom. For example, I believe that this is discussed in the Mahayana Sutra Alankara. So it's a recurrent theme in Mahayana, and this, I think, is linked to it. So, basic 2 points here. This chapter is about the context of the teaching, and as a special additional content, it discusses the purity of the Buddha field. Would you like to look at the purity? Purity of the Buddha field.
大家听懂吗？刚刚就提示这个帕里巴克就是停的意思，对不对？那什么叫尼达呢？尼达呢？你们有没有听懂？有没有同学听懂啊？他就是讲这部经被佛陀说法的这个特殊的场合，所以就这个一般来说这些经文第一句是就以如数我闻为开始，对不对？然后刚刚有访问讲出来了，但是这是代表是在什么时间讲的，然后在什么地方讲的，而且是针对什么众生或者针对谁讲的，这个就是包含这个尼达呢，这个范围了，好吧？所以尼达呢是显示出这种经师在什么场合实践针对什么众生而讲的这个场合啊。那个其他的布达切特，布达切特是什么？那个会同法师。布达切特是什么？不要发呆了。这是什么？对，就是 Buddha field in English，OK？ That's for 应该是佛果，就是鸠摩罗什翻译是佛果的。然后他就做一个解释，这是在这个布迪萨法的这个修佛道的过程当中，一定要经过的一个阶段啊。这个是坚持到那个布迪萨法的帕里苏蒂，帕里苏蒂就是什么清净的意思了啊，就是清净这个佛果的这个意思了。好啊，主要是这样说，所以这是第一批的这个意思。
This is our second parivarta. Again, let's read as we did earlier. Achintya, Upaya, Kaushalya, Parivarta. Achintyoupaya Kaushalya Parivarta. Okay, one thing you have to remember in Sanskrit, important point. O. In Sanskrit there exists no short O. So So when you pronounce O, it's always long. Achintyopai. Please remember that. What does it mean? It means the chapter on skill, kaushalya, in method or means, upaya. And how is this skill in means? Achintya, inconceivable. Actually, this word achintya, something which we cannot comprehend, think about, could refer to kaushalya, or it could refer to upaya. Either way. My thinking is that this refers mostly to kaushalya. So the inconceivable skill in means, more or less that would be the idea. Yes.
Yeah.
Kaushalya is a tardita derivative from the word kushala, which means someone's skill.